Alrighty, guys. Good morning. I should say good afternoon to you all here. It is almost noon here, Central Time here, June 26th, 2025, here on this lovely Thursday. Hope you guys are doing well out there. This will be the last weekend of June coming up here as we get ready to enter the month of July, getting ready for the July 4th holiday. Hope you guys are all excited for that. I am as well. Just to give you guys a heads up on that, we will be gone on vacation July 2nd through July 7th. There won't be any videos. There won't be any weather content, any of that. There might be some fun live streams outside of the weather, but there will not be any of that going through next week. So we will be leaving for vacation next Wednesday, and we will be gone until the following Monday. So just a heads up to everybody that watches my videos regularly and all of that stuff. You guys can tune into Connor's Climate Corner. He's also as well. He does weather content. He posts every day as well. He does live streams when needed. So if anything is ongoing during that time period, I'm pretty sure he'll be on covering that if need be. So other than that, guys, we do have severe weather to watch. We've also got a little potential, not quite yet by the National Hurricane Center yet issued, but we do have the potential for what could be a major, or not a major, but a potential small spin up low pressure system. Maybe could become something tropical going in towards the end of next week, towards the Gulf Coast here. We'll kind of talk briefly about it. There's not a lot of model agreement yet on it, but it's something I'm starting to notice a little bit of a trend in on some models. We'll kind of talk about that briefly. I will let you guys know there will be live severe weather coverage later on this afternoon for storms up in Minnesota, Wisconsin, as we do have an elevated tornado risk again. We ended up getting on yesterday and doing live stream coverage yesterday for a couple hours. We had multiple tornado warnings out yesterday in southern Minnesota and western Wisconsin, so a pretty big day yesterday across those areas. The same areas that got hit yesterday are going to get hit again today as we see another round of storms going to be moving into the area. So other than that, right now, marginal risk, a pretty big wonky marginal risk across majority of the United States today, and that's underneath of that high pressure that's still spinning here in the Kentucky, lower Ohio Valley region here, and that's going to bring general thunderstorms. There could be some winds, could be some hail. We had a pretty interesting line of storms that worked its way east to southeast to the west last night from North Carolina all the way down into Georgia overnight. That brought some damaging winds and some pretty potent and beautiful looking shelf cloud pictures that we saw on social media yesterday as well. But some of these areas will see those rounds of storms again. They'll be on the lower side of things all the way up into Michigan. So a pretty big day for severe weather across, a widespread area, but the low end severe weather risk is what's going to be the biggest factor for today. So we're going to talk about all that, break all that down for you guys, just kind of get you guys out the door here as well. There is a round of storms moving through the northeast, showers and storms through some areas in the Carolinas right now, general thunderstorms, and then a complex of storms up into Minnesota, which is going to allow for a warm front to lift to give us a severe weather threat for our setup for today. We'll go ahead and start out with the Storm Prediction Center's outlook here for today. We do have a level 2 slight risk here for western and central Wisconsin, southeastern Minnesota, northeastern Iowa, and northwestern extreme portions of Illinois. There's like 1 or 2 counties that are in that risk there. Outside of that, there are marginal risk up into Montana and northwestern North Dakota, which will play a factor into tomorrow's setup. We'll have a system coming through tomorrow, and then a huge marginal risk that extends all the way to the southeast and down into Florida. So a pretty big risk zone today, but low in risk zone in terms of most threats. We will have a tornado threat today, and there actually is an elevated tornado risk. We do have a 2% and a 5% tornado risk today from La Crosse back down through portions of central Iowa here, getting into the outskirts of Des Moines there. So we do have a pretty decent tornado risk today. So there will be a watch that more than likely gets issued at some point later on this afternoon here. So be weather aware today in this area, guys. We'll be live covering this event as always for my Minnesota, my Iowa, Wisconsin people. You guys will have that coverage today as long as needed. We'll kind of get you guys in the know on what's going to be looking like that here in just a moment. We do have a wind threat today as well, 15% in that yellow slight risk there for winds up to 70 miles per hour. And then we've also got a 5% chance of seeing that outside of those areas in the maroon, and then a hail threat as well along the east coast and the Atlantic here. I wouldn't be shocked to see SPC upgrade to a 30% wind somewhere in here. We'll see what they do on the outlook update here in about an hour or so. There will be an upgrade, potentially not an upgrade, but an update to this outlook here in a little bit. So we'll talk about that on the stream when that happens, but that tornado risk is really what's driving today's risk zone in terms of the slight wind and the tornado threat today. So do be mindful of that. We get to tomorrow's risk zone, and tomorrow also could be kind of a weird, wonky day. We do have a level 2 slight risk that extends from North Dakota down into Nebraska here and back up into western Minnesota, kind of like what we've been seeing the last couple of days here. We've had these low and severe weather days. Well, tomorrow could also get upgraded to an enhanced for damaging wind or for hail. We are seeing the sign for a couple supercells that could fire off, maybe even a strong tornado risk. Can't be ruled out going into tomorrow here. We're going to have to watch tomorrow very, very closely in terms of all modes of severe weather. There is a small 2% tornado risk. This could easily get upgraded into a 5%, maybe even a 10 hatch. We'll see what happens. That extends from Valentine, Nebraska, all the way up through Bismarck. Wind threat at 15 and 5% there for winds up to 70 miles per hour and along the east coast and southeast down here tomorrow. And then we do have a hatched hail threat for hail exceeding 2 inches in diameter here. So something we're going to have to watch for in that hatched region there from Valentine up through Bismarck. And then outside of that, 1 to 2 inch diameter hail for everybody else that's in risk zone. So we're going to watch tomorrow very closely here. General thunderstorms outside of that for everybody in the light green. Dark green means marginal. Slight risk is in the yellow. We'll keep you guys updated on that. And then we go through the Saturday outlook. And once again, another slight risk has been introduced for Saturday here, and a marginal risk outside of that will be watching Minneapolis, Minnesota, Sioux Falls, getting into Norfolk, Iowa, Nebraska, getting into Minnesota and western Wisconsin. Again, with the general thunderstorm risk outside of that, we shouldn't see too much in terms of severe weather down in this area. Once again, it'll be strictly to the north, as that low pressure system that was giving severe weather yesterday, today, and tomorrow will be diminishing on that side of things off the East Coast. So something we're going to watch very closely. We'll keep you guys updated on that. I also think we'll probably get a risk zone on Sunday, just kind of given what the National Weather Service is saying here. Something we'll watch here, and then going in through early next week, we could see scattered severe storms in a sheared environment up in the high plains once again. So just something to be mindful of as we go into the July 4th holiday. We'll keep you guys updated on that through next week here. Another thing we're going to watch here as well is going to be just the radar, what we're going to see today. And right now, things are quiet, things are calm, but we are going to see things uptrend here in the next couple of hours. Really looking at thunderstorm initiation right around 1 to 2 o'clock this afternoon. So really within the next 2 to 3 hours, we'll have discrete supercells firing off. There could be a tornado risk with any of these cells that say semi-discrete or discrete. Something to be mindful of there. And then we're eventually going to go linear. And I do want to watch, especially as we get closer to around 5 to 6 p.m., if any of these supercells can get going out in front of this line of storms in Wisconsin, there could be a pretty decent tornado risk, as that 5% does include this area here. So we do need to be watching central and southern Wisconsin this afternoon. There will be a damaging wind component. This is where I think a 30% enhanced risk could get introduced for wind. We'll see what happens with this, but this also could be producing QLCS tornadoes. This would be going through about 6 to 7 p.m. this afternoon here through tonight, and then eventually as this line gets into Wisconsin, taps into that unstable instability, or not unstable, but lesser instability, we'll see this line of storms kind of fall apart. There will still be scattered thunderstorms that could develop in Michigan through the overnight hours, back down here into northern Missouri, southern eastern portions of Iowa. We could see a wind threat and a hail threat involved with this, but other than that, the main threat's going to be southern Minnesota, northern and central Iowa, and western and central Wisconsin later on this afternoon, as we'll see all modes of severe weather possible. And then eventually, once again, as we go into tomorrow, we do want to look at tomorrow here in just a second. I want to go to the southeast to show you guys an idea of what today is going to also look like here. Scattered thunderstorms will be popping up later on this afternoon. Bubblers, we'll have some wind, some hail out there. Nothing crazy like yesterday at all. Could see some 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts, maybe a couple 70s out there, but most of this will be wind and some small hail, and then that'll diminish as the sun sets and as instability kind of goes down for the evening. Kind of looking at tomorrow as well here. Tomorrow also looks quite interesting. Tomorrow we could see a couple supercells fire off here in this environment here later on through the afternoon and evening hours. You can see some pretty big supercells. If this does trend up and we see more widespread coverage, we could see an enhanced risk get upgraded as well here for hail potentially, maybe even for a tornado risk. We'll see what happens with this, but the shear tomorrow will be present. There's just not a lot of convection. You can see some storms in North Dakota, some storms in South Dakota, but there's not a lot of widespread convection. So something to kind of initiate and kind of take note of here. Just looking at the instability for tomorrow's environment as well. We also are going to be looking at a pretty unstable environment. Instability could be pushing as high as 3,000, maybe even 5,000 joules per kilogram down here in Nebraska. And I do think northern Nebraska and central Nebraska are a little bit more conditional. We'll probably have a cap down here, but there could be some storms that initiate along this surface low that develops if things do in fact happen. It could be a little bit more interesting. Tornado threat tomorrow also on the weaker side of things, but there still could be a couple tornadoes out there. You can see that environment, a couple spots of some higher params here as we see low-level shear kick in after sunset tomorrow, which will help involve the tornado risk a little bit more here. So we are going to have to watch this very closely for a strong tornado risk. If we do get a strong tornado, it would be more than likely in this corridor here from North Dakota down into northern Nebraska, where we would see that potential at. So it's not out of the picture, especially getting down here into South Dakota, where we could see maybe a higher chance at a stronger tornado going through tomorrow afternoon. That's EF2+. So something to be mindful of. We'll keep you guys updated on that as things trend. Just kind of look as well. We typically don't show this too often, but I'll show you guys this in general here. This is our capped environment. And if you look at tomorrow, things are capped. We are going to have to watch for a capped environment, but eventually as that surface low develops and that low-level shear develops, we'll see that capped environment start to kind of diminish here, and we'll see storms initiate around 5 to 6 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, maybe even a little bit sooner than that. So just something to kind of take hold of here. We'll keep you guys updated on that as things change. We'll talk about it in the live stream today as well. I do want to talk about our overall pattern because things are going to get better, guys. They will get better, I promise. For my people up here that have been seeing the severe weather, we should start to get a break going into next week. High pressure system has been dominating for much of the week here in the United States. That excessive heat wave that's been in place here, we'll see a little bit of shear over top of that ridge today to give us some general thunderstorms for some wind, some hail, and then that isolated to elevated tornado risk up in Wisconsin and Minnesota and Iowa today. Eventually that's going to clear out. Tomorrow we'll see a little bit more better of a chance of some low and severe weather again going across the Great Lakes and going up into Canada. And then I mentioned you guys the last couple days, we're going to see much of the United States here return to a quieter weather pattern. There will be general thunderstorms across the board here as we go through the next couple of days, the next couple of really the next week or two. But eventually what's going to happen up top of that ridge is we're going to see northwesterly flow, and that's when our jet stream goes west to east, very flat, very zonal. You can get severe weather in these areas, but it's not as significant severe weather because you want to see kind of more southwest to northeast motion of your low level winds to allow for more of a better shot at that. There will be a damaging wind and a hail threat component to this, probably going into Saturday across these areas here in the plains, going into Sunday. But eventually, as we go into early next week, we're going to start to see this ridge develop well out here into the plains and into the Rockies. And what that's going to do is it's going to kind of shift our jet stream kind of up and over that top of that ridge. And you'll get a low pressure system off the west coast. We might actually get some rainfall down in here into California, which would be beneficial. That would be super, super, super awesome. We'll keep most of the United States kind of dry and quieter. There still will be general thunderstorms. As I mentioned to you guys at the beginning of the video as well, we do need to watch for a low. There's going to be a little low that tries to develop down here off the Gulf potentially next week. And if that does develop, we could see a tropical depression, maybe even a shot at a tropical storm developing. I'm still not very sold on that idea yet in terms of what's going to happen with that until the National Hurricane Center issues a, shaded color over top of that to talk about something developing. We'll kind of talk more about that then, but there's something to make note of down there. We will have a low that tries to get distinguished late next week here after the 4th of July holiday is over with. And if that does develop, we could see our B name storm on the list get issued as we go into the month of June, or go into the month of July here. Talking about next week, getting ready for the 4th of July, there will be still zonal flow. Much of their United States will be underneath of that ridge here. There will be kind of some scattered bulk shear areas here where we could see some 20 to 30 knot low-level shear, allowing for some storms to fire off. And so there will be a chance for general thunderstorms, maybe even some severe days next week, but I don't think it's going to be anything too significantly organized. And you can see that surface low developing down here in the Gulf by next Friday on the 4th here. Something we'll have to watch for. Could bring a washout conditions down here to the Gulf for the 4th of July next week. So something to also be note of there. Not quite sold on that idea yet, but we'll talk more about it in the next couple of days. And then we do see, once again, zonal shear over top of a ridge developing again, and it looks to be our second heat wave of the year will be in its place next week as we go into the 4th of July holiday season over much of the Ohio Valley with zonal shear on top of that. So just something to take note of, guys. We'll talk more about this in the streams. We could see more of an active pattern for severe weather as we go into the 2nd and 3rd week of July. That's still a little ways out in terms of the overall chances of looking at, but we'll talk more about that in future videos there. Here's also an idea of just the scattered thunderstorms that'll be ongoing here through Sunday. We can see all those green dots popping up, the convection. It's just general thunderstorms mostly. You see more of an organized threat going into Sunday and Monday across the Midwest here, and then eventually as we go into next week, maybe more scattered cells across Oklahoma, getting into Missouri. It's just very, very hard to pinpoint where thunderstorms are going to initiate at with these type of setups here, but high pressure will be dominating, thunderstorms under top of that. Going into Tuesday, going into Wednesday, we will start to see that low develop off the Rockies going into next Wednesday here. High pressure back down here once again in the Ohio River Valley with general thunderstorms underneath of that could allow for some severe weather up in the Midwest and up in the high plains going into the 4th there. And after that, this is what I want to watch for going into next weekend here, is this little pesky cutoff low that could potentially, if it does tap into the environment down here, if it does get into those warm water temperatures, we could see something potentially develop tropical, maybe subtropical. We'll see what happens with this. A lot of the times this will bring a lot of beneficial rainfall to Florida or to the Gulf states down here, and you guys do need that rainfall down there, so we'll take that if that does happen. And you can see muchly going into the 4th of July, there's not a lot going on here in this area for the United States, so that would be kind of a good thing to see a lot of that convection kind of lift out. And then eventually going into Saturday and Sunday that following weekend, we'll kind of see things get a little bit more interesting. So we'll keep you guys updated on that. I'm not too quite yet sold on the idea of that low yet in the Gulf yet. We'll see if the European or some of these other models can catch on to it. But other than that, it's going to stay active severe weather wise. It'll stay active general thunderstorm wise, continuing to see an excessive heat wave across much of the United States here, the eastern half through the weekend here. But other than that, I will see y'all in live stream today. Be safe, be weather aware, and we'll see you guys in the next one.